How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and happy Christmas. Hope you're all enjoying your mornings or evenings, whatever part of the world you're at, what time you're on. Yeah, I've managed to squeeze in this review for today for the Tayga 6455B. So last time we called that, I'll make up some kind of name. I was thinking Tony, Tony the Tayga. Like, they're great. We'll rip Frosters off somehow. Anyway, we'll look into it. With the engine, it's the IMZ blah blah blah. It's a decent enough engine. It's got S on the power. I don't think it's S plus, but it's close enough. It's pretty far up there. That's what she said, of course. The gearbox high range I'm going for. The suspension is raisable. It doesn't really, you can see it practically makes no difference, but the biggest thing it does do is allow you to get the bigger size tyres, so you've got 48 inch and 50 inch. Yeah, to get the 50 inch tyres you have to have the raised suspension. It's got the custom muds. I do like the look of them, and to be honest, tonight I pretty much stuck to the chained muds because they were performing pretty bloody well, to be honest, and tipping wise it's not that crazy or anything, so yeah, that's what I went with. I was testing it out. The winch is gone for the strongest. Spare wheel, it had one that goes behind the cab. I'll mention why that's sort of relevant in a minute. Snorkel wise, there's a pretty crap snorkel, or there's like a twin snorkel that's nearly to the top of the roof. All the add-ons, it's got near enough everything, I think, and maybe not like the magnetic scanner thing or whatever, but it's got like this, you know, everything pretty much. Yeah, that's why right at the bottom there's like another add-on which has just got a spare wheel on the roof, and that's all it is. Sadly, it'd be nice if it did a few supplies on the bonnet. I don't know actually, because that'd probably get in the way of the view out the window. But yeah, it is what it is. As a spare tyre you can put on. Add-ons, you got like a sun visor, the different types of lights. Kind of got the old style and the new sort of more LED style ones. Bumper wise, I'm sticking with the stock for this one because you can see like the little tow hitch thing at the bottom sticks out less than everything like with the stock bumper. Overall though, I do quite like that. Looks alright, and that one looks pretty nice as well. But yeah, just for the sakes of like nose clearance and all the rest of it for this video, well, I might just leave the stock one on anyway. But yeah, that's the one I'd recommend, like objectively should be the least likely to catch. That was just some horns. For this, the exhaust, obviously I'd probably choose the ones that point outwards, but the actual stock exhaust, you can see just behind the red fuel tank there's a exhaust there, basically stock, so it sprays out like under your truck, which just means you never have the hassle of the smoke getting in your way. And if you have those big tall smokestacks, then when you roll over they're going to stab in the ground, and they're going to have some bearing on whether you roll all the way over or get stuck on your roof and all sorts. Colour wise, it was black, grey, white. They look pretty good in all colours, to be honest. That's quite nice. I don't dislike it. I think it suits the truck. I do quite like the red. I think that's what I kept tonight. The orange I like as well, which matches the other Tayga. Even that one, it's not what I'd choose, but it's nice. That, probably my least favourite out of the custom colours, but again, it's not horrible. It kind of suits the look of the truck and all the rest of it. Yeah, looks like, I think it does look pretty cool. I was just checking the steering. It's got a tiny little bit where it flicks the opposite way, but nothing too crazy. It's got quite a long wheelbase, so the rear axles are like really far at the back. You can see the rear tyre, apart from that little tow hitch, which probably doesn't even have a hitbox. Yeah, the tyres might even be further out the back. Interior, pretty old school one, but it's got a window out the back. There's no rear view mirror or anything. A pretty small mirror, but you can definitely see the tyres pretty well, so that's pretty cool. There's a pretty inconveniently placed fire extinguisher when you look out, but you can definitely see the back. You can see your tyres and all the rest of it. The horn, it's not bad. It's pretty short and sweet and squeaky, but yeah, at least it sounds like it's got a bit of oomph to it. Engine wise, despite all the dials on the dash and all the rest of it, I had a little look through, and none of them are like a rev counter or anything. Every time I was sitting there revving for a while, I didn't see any dials moving or whatever, so I can't really say whether it revs quick or slow or what's going on. Turning wise, I could already tell there from how close it went to the curb that it's not slow steering, but it's quite shallow overall. It doesn't get a really sharp turning angle, so yeah, the turning circle wise it's not going to be amazing. The trailers, it can have basically every trailer, because it can have the saddle high and saddle low, which is pretty cool, because for some reason they keep limiting, especially the Tatras and stuff, like can have one or the other. And then obviously all the towable trailers as well. Yeah, again, round there, at least the nice thing is it's got enough power that it doesn't really step the back end out, but kind of enough to where it doesn't feel like it's understeering. It just is more that it's quite shallow steering. It just never goes far enough, but it doesn't, yeah, like I say, some trucks do feel like they understeer quite badly. And going through here, pretty good result. I'm still in high gear. Got a little bit close there, but I think I went a little bit further to the middle. But I actually managed to stay in high gear through there, which not that many trucks do. The Dolphin was one of them. That's literally where it got its nickname, the off-road Dolphin, because it was bobbing up and down like it was, yeah, a dolphin swimming around in mud. And this thing actually stayed in high, and even ploughing along here, it's keeping a good pace. What I quite liked about it, and these tyres certainly, I can't say if they helped or not, but the end result was, even as I'm driving along now, they don't feel like they're bleeding a lot of power to wheel spin, particularly recently, and it could partly be because I'm on Black River at the minute, whereas obviously the Phase 6 maps have got their own possible unique coding to make trucks behave a certain way, but at least driving around on here, just, yeah, it feels like the power that you've got actually is transferred to the road and you're not just bleeding it in, like I said, wheel spin and bobbing around and all the rest of it. Tree-wise, it managed to kill the first two, but I got an awkward speed where I was sort of about stalling in high. As you can see, I went and slapped a few more trees down, and yeah, it's a pretty decent tree-killing machine, to be honest. Which is funny, because it doesn't seem like it's the heaviest of vehicles. It also got through there, I'll just say quickly while it's there, I didn't have to drop out of high gear there, and again, there's a few trucks that have managed that. Normally, they more manage it in the advanced special gearboxes, etc., because they tick over slower anyway. Normally, the high range high gears, too punchy, and it'll just wheel spin and chew up the terrain, but it managed to keep its pace there. This is more of a little bug. You see, I just hit that sign. It's like locked into my bumper, and there's some weird, like, if you travel more than a certain distance from where the, like, signpost, the fence was, it kind of hits an invisible hitbox and stops you dead. You can see, to the point, it's literally bananaed this truck, like, it's pinned me and bending the whole chassis. I was messing around just trying to get, like, unwinch from it, and you'll see in a minute, it's like getting chucked out of a nightclub by a bouncer when you're too pissed. And stay out. So yeah, got treated pretty poorly by the sign, I would say, on Christmas as well. What a goddamn savage. Laying here like, wow, I didn't want to go nightclubbing anyway. I'd rather lay here in the gutter, thanks, so joke's on you. Yeah, so I mention it because my loaf had a fight with a fence the other day, and my loaf did win, kicked its ass, but some shenanigans like that happened, and yeah, it started trying to throw my loaf around, but my loaf survived it, because he is goddamn professional, of course. Damage on the suspension wise, it doesn't really take loads, but you get 1 damage. I was taking a few 2s as well, but all night I didn't really have any crazy issues with the suspension. It's one of them, I could see it being a little bit trollish, but it's probably a victim of, like, it's got quite a nice pace to the truck, so you inherently pick up a bit more the quicker you can go. The Dolphin's another good example of that, where it just picks up a lot of damage, but it's not that it's weaker, it's just going fast enough to collect it more often. Yeah, got a little bit of drift going on back there, but the steering's quick enough to catch when it starts stepping out, so that's nice. But like I said, so it's not understeer or slow steering, it's, yeah, just like the Dolphin's got slower steering, but it's got quite a nice deep steering angle once it actually goes. This is sort of, and then the Voron AE would be a good example of, like, shallow and slow steering for me personally. And like the spectrum of all the different trucks, I think that's definitely objectively on the slower end. The Tayga's probably one of the quicker steering trucks in the game. That's almost twitchy for some people. It can be for me. I still like driving the Tayga, and yeah, this definitely ballpark kind of got to be up with those sort of trucks, the Taygas, the Vorons, the Dolphin, just all them sorts. And then I came here quickly for the tree test, and well, I just left this first bit in because driving over this field here that's all ploughed up, that slows most vehicles down, but this actually managed to stay in high gear for it. And tree killing wise, pretty happy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Absolutely ate them for breakfast. It's pretty good driving back there. It's a good little Christmas treat. Yeah, I've not been here for a little while. Not had enough vehicles to test. I can't remember if I've done the Phoenix and the Tatra Force on these trees. Actually, I have to look into that. Sadly, it made it 6 more trees on the way back, but then it finally stalled. And as you can see, our nearest makes no difference. Killed the engine. So next up, the snow test in Northport. Nice thing is it ate its way across that first bit. This bit always turns like super snow and slows you down, but it got through it fairly quick. At least barrier-wise, the 50-inch tyres and the raised suspension, if you're going to catch anything, them red fuel tanks catch a little bit. But yeah, it was tall enough to just walk over the crash barrier thing. And that there is actually not a bad effort. It was definitely sliding off, but most trucks beach in the middle and slide off immediately and all sorts, so it kind of did better climbing over that rock. I know half the time I edit that bit out just because, yeah, it goes pretty iffy. And to be fair, I could drive this over again and it could be a different result. So, and that's like the second barrier test where it's sort of a taller barrier. So this thing definitely, nose-wise, it certainly cleared the barrier with ease. But yeah, even like the transfer case under the middle and that, some trucks have some kind of hitbox angle going on under there and you can catch stuff, but with this it doesn't really seem to be an issue. Even those red fuel tanks, they sit high enough that, because like I said, as it's got quite a long wheelbase between the front and the rear, there's a lot of scope for being able to beach in the middle around where them red fuel tanks are. And across that snow there, that's like super snow as well. I drove up a thing in auto at first, but I actually managed to put it in high, and I have to say this thing is it's pretty decent in snow. I can't say 100% with the say the custom muds and all the rest of it. I only got this truck yesterday. I drove it around yesterday. Been driving it around tonight. I wanted to get the review done since it's Christmas today. Thought I'd knock it together tonight, Christmas morning, while Santa's out delivering presents. I'm yeah, flying around in this thing, having a good old time. Me and the loaf. The only way to spend Christmas morning. It's a little bit, it kept skidding off to the side there quite a lot, but I don't know if I was just taking a bit of a bad line or whatever, but it climbed up the rock fine. It didn't really slide off to any different to what any other truck could or would. Going down the other side, it didn't beach itself on its nose or anything. The wall jump, I like that test. Yeah, absolutely aced that. Because there's such good clearance at the front, especially with the stock bumper, it just had no issues. It flicked the front nose up, and once you get a nice launch off them pipes, it just, the back end kind of has to follow by then. When you get a nice successful jump in. Sound like something she'd say. Cutting through that, I'd say the view through the window is a little bit narrow. It was a little bit iffy trying to work out which gap in the trees I was going to go for. But it didn't really get caught eye or clip the edge of the tree. Like, it ploughed through there with no issues. And even going up here, just for the hell of it, I think I'd try and drop it in high. Was it now? Yeah, and it actually fired up in high. So it's a pretty lenient high gear. And on something like that, like the peak of the hill, you'd have to do that really. Otherwise, I would have guaranteed beached there in the end. See, I got a bit of a weird landing there, and that completely shattered the suspension and the fuel tank. But it did roll back to its wheels. Anyway, next up the old cargo test. So yeah, at least it's got saddle load and all the rest of it, so I can have a normal trailer. Because again, a lot of trucks that have saddle high, I have to use either that big fat wide boy trailer. Now the turning circle you can clearly see isn't that good. That's more on the level, like turning round in this yard. The Dolphin did about the same, is probably a good example. I think that did have to do a 3-point turn. I probably could have gave it a bit of a better chance if I was already on full lock before I started driving them, but I believe with all the other trucks I've done, at least I was supposed to, like I set off without steering and then steer as soon as I start driving, so just to kind of see how quick it kicks in from the wheels being straight to going full lock. But yeah, this is definitely not good on the turning circle end of things. That's going to be one of its biggest weaknesses, I would say, overall. Sorry, that was my phone going off there. It's the old Happy Christmas text. Yeah, looks pretty good though while I was driving with cargo. I'll be honest, I didn't try, but I can be willing to bet money that I'd be able to fit a crane and everything on when you've got cargo, because it has got quite nice length to it. It's definitely what she said. Yeah, like the chassis bed and all the rest of it. Do you know what? I should have tried it. I'm just wondering if it can do the triple, like the crane, the sideboard, and a trailer. Going over this bit though, this is like the section, yeah, where I cut over from like the main road on Northport to where the fuel station is really. It started pulling pretty nicely and it was going well. You can see that root in the ground, and when I get around here, I start to kind of get a bit bogged down, and I was looking at like maybe it's the rails on the sideboard semi-trailer, but I kind of don't think it was. But I also sort of feel like it, you can sort of tell it wants to go through. It's kind of like crawling forward a bit. I'm not sure if that root has just clipped on me a little bit. I mean, I haven't done a whole lot of driving with it with a trailer full of cargo and all the rest of it, but I stuck a winch to that telegraph pole or whatever it is, just pulled myself forward like for half a second, and then disconnected it, and now I can drive out of there. So yeah, for the most part, I'm kind of 3/4 like convinced that it'd get through there alright. I might have just had a bit of an unlucky run there. You can see the turning circle again. I even turned a little bit early there, because just to save the inevitable. Otherwise I'll just go too wide and hit the back of that trailer. Done it plenty of times before. This is the old this is where Santa's been stashing all his presents. Like I say, if anyone needs service spare parts, let me know. Buy one, get one free. Yeah, next up for the old water test. I, to be honest, approached at a bit of a crappy angle, so I didn't quite fully drop the hammer, but I went back into auto and then straight back into high, and it's very quick for, like, you can just stick it in high gear. You only need to set off like half a truck length or something, and you can already go in high gear, which I personally, I like that a lot. Going for this truck test, this, to be honest, is a sort of a normal sized truck. I'd say the rear tyres obviously sit a tiny bit wide, because some of the trucks that are this size easily just squeeze through there perfectly. This one looked like it scuffed its rear tyres a little bit, which is not a bad thing. It's got enough width to sit quite sturdy. That's one reason why I was driving around in these chained all night, because on these maps I would have changed to the chained anyway, but say when I was on Black River, I'd quite happily use the custom muds, but often I don't like the lack of grip you get from the custom muds, but they sit well and they make the truck sit well and not be very tippy and all the rest of it. But this thing was good enough all night at not tipping that it never bothered me just having these chained that, again, like sit narrower compared. I was looking around there, got a little bit off track, finally killed a tree while I was driving down there, so I was just happy that the tree didn't stop me. I was able to kill it and keep going. You can see though the window view is a little bit narrow really, because you kind of got those roller blinds at the top of your window. The fact that you got a big bonnet or hood or whatever sticking out the front, that hogs up a lot of like the central space of where you're looking. The way the hood's shaped and all that, you get the little gaps at the edge. I don't know what the Russians call a bonnet. Is it in the UK we call it a bonnet, but do the Russians call them bonnets or hoods? And there's on a postcard. Going through that mud section as well, even I stayed in high. I don't know, it's got quite it doesn't automatically like or I can at least say this is on like the first section of maps. Phase 6 I have drove it around, and I think on phase 6 they've just, I don't know, there's done something that makes it feel one size fits all a little bit, and you don't really feel much differentiation between average trucks and great trucks. They all feel like they've been reined back a bit, but on all these original maps and maybe the first couple of phases and all that, yeah, this I think has pretty damn good mud grip. Just like I say, the truck, it's got to have some weight to it, because the fact that it's knocking trees down pretty easily is kind of that, but then there's certain elements of it that it can't be that much of a heavy truck, because it kind of skips along the top of snow a bit in a good way as well. This is, I mean, you can see it's high gear. It's not every patch, but even on the patches that normally slow you down, you still feel like you just get an extra 10% of power and speed that stays in there that normally the game bleeds out of it with practically every other vehicle. I will say again, another good comparison is the Dolphin, of like that's pretty good at maintaining its high gear speed without just bleeding it to wheel spin. Got caught on that tree stump there. I assume it was on like the rear axle, just on the inside of the tyre, but quick reverse sort of drove the tyre over it, and yeah, I think at that point it was weird, kind of phases through them there. But credit where it's due, it did pretty well along the snow there, got through that little bank in the middle without any issues. Coming up for this mud test though is the old Devil's Mud section in yeah, Northport. Driving along the edge was fine, started turning into the Devil's Mud, and gut feeling I thought this was gonna go about this fast and just cut through here no problem, but got to about now and it just started bogging down and stopping, and I cut a bit out there just to save the inevitable, but I had to winch to a tree to the side, pulled myself sort of over to the edge of the Devil's Mud section, and once I'm at the edge, even though I'm in reasonably deep mud now, even like the front tyres were like, they were pretty far in there and it was still pulling along, but yeah, the middle section it just really didn't like. I was trying to think, I don't really know what it was catching on, because it doesn't really seem like a vehicle that would catch that much. That's why I thought, like, my gut feeling was it slowly weighed its way through there, but for whatever reason it doesn't. It doesn't really bother me, because generally sections with mud that deep and stupid I'd either rather avoid, or I'll inevitably accept I've got to fling some winches out or take a goddamn horse over vehicle with me. And yeah, he'll get the job done. Send him ahead as a little mobile winch point. So I went for a pretty decent nose test, because it's kind of like it's got some good clearance at the front, and yeah, it was scuffing a little bit, but I could tell already it was going to go. But you can see the beaching, yeah, I'm now caught on them tanks. I'm going to have to drop it back a little bit. But yeah, not too far. Scoot over to the left a bit, it was enough. Like, the beaching thing, it's not really been terrible, like a pain in the arse all night, but it's definitely, again, like, if you think the shallow steering is one thing that, in theory, it'd be nice if it had a bit more to it, but yeah, the beaching thing is probably the next thing that'll catch you. But I don't know, overall I do like it. I think it's a pretty decent truck. It reminds me of, funny enough, it does remind me in many ways of the Tayga, performance wise, certain characteristics. Probably the Tayga, how it is now, versus, like, again, a year or so ago. Like, just everything felt like it had a bit more power and all that. The Tayga was, like, ridiculously good back when the game first came out. The rolling test, actually, it's pretty respectable there, because this is not a massive truck, so normally they roll like 1.25 to 1.5 times. The way that landed on its wheels, if this had weight high up in the cabin, all the rest of it, that definitely would have carried it over there, but it planted itself pretty convincingly onto its suspension and all that. And to be honest, I've been driving this around all night and yesterday after I did the video and that, or I suppose between the mission and the video. It's been rolling back onto its wheels pretty decently. I can't really knock it for it. Obviously every now and then you're going to end up like on your side and your roof, but yeah, it's definitely not like a punish as far as rolling goes and tipping. It's pretty well planted, and as well, if you do put those custom muds on in certain situations where they perform at least well enough, you're going to be even more planted. Driving along, the first issue was the shallow steering, trying to get a nice line, and then now though I've beached sort of again where the red fuel tanks are on that little bit. But a lot of trucks would have tipped before then. I was kind of trying to make it tip by now, because nothing else to do really. You best not touch my loaf. And it didn't, it knew. Victory horn. And yeah, last thing, climbing up this hill again with a chain on it, goes up through this snow. Normally the custom mud's let go about now, but I catch there because it beaches. However, to this thing's credit, roll back down the hill, go back up the hill, start mashing L1, hoping as soon as you see second gear out of 8, you can pretty much stick it in high range, and yeah, there's a pretty steep hill, it still let me fire up. And yeah, another roll, but again it carried itself over to its wheels, so I can't really complain. Next up, the old Quarry. Got a horse with me, of course. He likes going for a trip to the Quarry. But so far we're still in high gear, and it's sort of about there. You could tell it kind of lost its momentum a little bit. I think possibly, I don't know, I still think it does lead towards it's definitely not a really heavy vehicle, because I think if it had a bit more weight there, like now there's a trailer on the back that's probably pushing down like on the rear, the front's not as planted, but again, it doesn't make it like it's understeer and all that. It is what it is. You're going to reach a point where it's not just going to let you nail through mud like that in high gear, so it's nothing to worry about. There's certainly plenty of other trucks that go a lot slower through there than this did, and only a few that have gone faster. Yeah, for this little kind of, I knew I'd be able to do a pretty steep test, hence why I do a bit of a 3-point turn here to get like a harsher angle, but I also knew it would beach, but I just wanted to see would the front sort of carry me over enough to where it just ignores the beaching. I didn't get caught on like the fuel tanks is what I was sort of checking. Knocked my loaf over, see he does some kind of martial art jiu-jitsu style move, and bam, it's back on his wheels. He's got the truck right where he wants it. I was trying to fling panic winches out. There you go though, I can tip that much, and it didn't quite tip. The loaf knew what he was doing. He is a professional for a reason. Nails through there pretty well. I was in high gear, quite happy with that. A lot of trucks, particularly the weaker ones. I mean, engine-wise, even though it's not S+, there's definitely... Yeah, it's S, that's clearly enough, because... I don't know, I don't feel like lack of power has been much of an issue. And even the whole torque nerf thing, I've not really felt that as much, but I don't... Like I say, it might just be the... because I'm on the different maps and all that. Phase 6, I've got a feeling, is its own kettle of fish, where they've messed around with certain mechanics a little bit. Hoping the 1 or 2 get patched back out. So got my goddamn horse in play. I've got a few loafs around here now. It's because usually when I do the reviews, I've just gone to recover into Zimnegorsk, and then it's like, I've got to do the loading screen to go back to Quarry to grab my goddamn horse. And oh yeah, I should have bought them. I might buy another 10 later, because then I'll have 100. It seems right for Christmas Day. Quarry Hill as well, it did very good. It actually managed to get kind of between where I go from the first Quarry Hill to the second. It pulled the rails of the sideboard semi-trailer kind of through the mud. I think because the wheels sit so far back on the chassis, it kind of in turn makes the saddle sit quite high in relation to when you're going over the peak of a hill, and it seemed to work there. I mean, it's not like there's certainly bigger trucks in the game than this, and yeah, that's one of the few that just walked up both Quarry Hills. There's definitely other trucks. Bruce has done it, Dan's done it, of course the Loaf did and all that, but yeah, it's... Well, the Loaf did it with, was it a 2-slot truck trailer in the end. Yeah, it's been a while since a truck's actually hassle-free managed to get over that bloody first little, like, brow of the hill on the Quarry Hill. And then going up here, it actually looked sketchy, because as I was driving up, it kept going in second gear and then dying. But then up this hill, it kept the power there, which this is what I liked about this truck. The whole torque situation, this feels like it has enough torque. Like, it feels like it behaves how you'd hope it would. It's certainly no OP broken truck by any means. Like, the Tayga was objectively better than this back in the day. It's going to be very close these days anyway. But it actually got up to the top of that hill, even got its whole truck over. The thing that caught in the end was like those chassis, the side rails on the sideboard semi-trailer catch on a rock. There's just an awkward rock there that's a bit of a pain in the eyes. It's a bit of a shame because, yeah, once you hook on something like that, just the mechanics of the game almost lock it together, and you need like the winch on the tree. But that's a pretty decent Quarry Hill test overall. I can't really knock it. And this is just messing around now really, but dropping the hammer down here, go for a little jump off there. Lands it quite nicely though, takes a little bit of damage but nothing special. Didn't tip though, which I kind of dick around with them flying down there, kind of half hoping I'll tip just for the hell of it. So I thought, right, we'll see, can the Loaf flip it and the trailer? I'll get it to tip. You seen the cargo just tip out, and then it carried on. Somehow the cargo back in the trailer is like, god damn it, are you kidding me? The one time I actually want to tip, and the game just has to 2 fingers up like, well, actually, we're going to let you tip, let the cargo make it back into the trailer, and be instantly packable on a hill. I swear this game again. Evil, fly, shit rubbing hands tactics going on again. Well, let's be honest, we keep coming back for more. Yeah, so attempt number 2 at tipping. I thought it was thinking about it, doing it again. So, sending the Loaf. That's where I'd say the winch points is probably one of the crapper things about the truck. It's only got 1 central winch point at the front, which is a pain. It'd be nice if it had 2, or preferably even 3, like 1 at each corner and in the middle. The winch point is further back from like the weight distribution of the truck, so when you're pulling on the winch point I am now, it's trying to pull the back end towards me before the truck wants to tip. I think partly the trailer was then only let it go so far. And yeah, like I say, I mean, get yourself a Loaf, that's what we learn from every video. He's still a professional. I wasn't really worried about the Loaf struggling to tip this thing. But yeah, that's what I would say. The winch points, it's not the end of the world. There's the bare basics there. I think you've got 1 central winch point at the back as well. Or no, was it? No, sorry, it's 2 at the back, where if I had the choice, I'd rather 2 at the front and 1 at the back. That's definitely what she said. But yeah, it's not, whereas you've got other trucks like the Voron Grad is a good example. That's I believe got the 2 winch points at the front, and it has got the full 3 at the back. It's one of the only trucks for some reason that has all 3 winch points at the back. Crossing ice, it's going pretty well. As well, I could go back and get the custom muds that do sit wider and it'll give me like a better chance, but even with these chained, it was cutting through. Eventually I hit a patch where, yeah, it's not foolproof. The truck's certainly heavy enough to punch through, but like I said, it's also on the snow, it was quite light on its feet. So I had a twin steer nearby, so as you do, I just give it a little nudge to try and free it up. However, things went horribly wrong. It was about now. I was like, oh my god, I need a goddamn horse of a vehicle. So, OG Loaf to go and send him in. And yeah, again, this is like the one central winch point at the front. I don't get as much leverage. I was just trying to tip it sideways, so the middle winch, sorry, actually gives me again some leverage instead of just trying to pull it on its roof towards me. But it's yeah, just a little bit awkward. It'd be pretty cool if they did have like a good set of winch points on it. Oh, so yeah, it has got 2 at the rear. But you can see, especially with the rear winch point, it's not going to tip over, it's just going to make it twist around. And it's not really an issue tipping it with the loaf, but how narrow the chassis is and where that winch point is, etc. The truck is really unsure whether to scrape along sideways, just still laying on its side, but be pulled towards you, or tip onto its wheels. It's really like, it can go either way, and it's sort of, you get stuck for a few seconds sometimes where it's deciding what it wants to do. Thankfully, for the most part, it ends up giving in to reason, and it starts tipping. And then, yeah, while I was there, I mean, why not? He is a goddamn professional. May as well flip the, the twin steer while I'm here. Little Christmas treat for him. And I'm kind of flipping it out of ice up onto the solid ice as well, so... And I've got muds on, not even got chained on. That's how much of a beast the loaf is. And then like he's getting near to the ice, you think it's got him done, and then he digs deep. Eye of the Tayga. Job's a good one. Get yourself a loaf, that's definitely what I've learnt. We always learn that, but still, it's good to hear it. Yeah, Jeff Special wise, it's a little bit iffy for getting into it. I think if you're absolutely flat out in like 8th out of 8th, you might be able to get it to go on the ice, but generally speaking, it's not really going to happen. It's usually pretty lenient on this Lake Covd and the ice and all the rest of it as well. It'll be more iffy on like the runway on White Valley. Yeah, jumped in here just as a quick preview. The nose was floating, and then I started driving out in the water. It's doing that thing where like the rear's touching the ground, so it's propelling me along a little bit. But yeah, how much it floats at the front was just like under where its snorkels were, so in the right situation it wasn't taking any damage, but I was driving over rocks on like the seabed that were twisting me sideways and were making one snorkel go underwater and so on. And with the double snorkel system, you've only got to drown one snorkel and you'll take damage. You don't get like the best of both worlds where it'll sort of let you not take damage until both are underwater or something. Crossing that little flooded foothills river, there's no real issues. I think I did stall in high range halfway over, but I'm not bothered about that. I'm not even sure if I drive in high range on some of the other trucks. But yeah, this waterfall that it's not been in every review, but since I've kind of started messing around up here, I mean it's flying up here, no issues. Again, it's very in high range. Overall, I'd say got to be a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. Stuff like the Phoenix and the Grad are probably then got to be like an 8.5, 9 out of 10. But yeah, this is definitely up there in those kind of leagues. Must have smashed a tyre at some point, but I didn't really notice, to be honest, so it can't be that bad. Yeah, you can definitely see it's a bit of a damage collector. Might be the odd like one here and there and all that. Oh yeah, I was driving to do a mountain test. It hit that bloody tree sticking out of the ground. However, this truck decided to do the old slippery dolphin method. It's a rarely used method, but it works, so yeah. He's on his roof, he's off. It's not letting it stop him. Not on Christmas. Far too happy. And then, for no apparent reason, it's well, time to flip. Now, as far as sitting on its side, you can get lucky and it'll lean on its tyres a bit. Probably won't ever happen if you have the custom muds on, because they'll sit wider, but with the narrower overall, I'd say like average, but yeah, narrower than the custom muds, Sometimes it can lean towards its roof, where you're definitely not firing the engine up, but as you've seen there, sometimes you can get it to where it'll sit on a little bit of an angle, so it's not necessarily just a pure flat side to it. It's kind of like got two edges where if you're lucky it'll lean on the side where it'll let you start your engine. Mostly, if you're on your side, you probably, yeah, you're gonna have to send in the loaf. Climbing up there though, even in high gear all the way up that mountain, it was doing pretty well. Can't really knock it. Yeah, didn't moan in high gear, which is the main thing. Going down the runway, as you can see, I'm not in doing like a Jeff special just yet, but jumping off the cliff, got a bit of a twist on, but it's a pretty decent jump. Bit of chassis flex there when I landed. Yeah, that's definitely staying on its roof. So we'll go back for another one, and you see now, I was in 8th out of 8, stuck it in high, no. It was thinking about it, but at the last minute, it backed out. Didn't want to do the old Jeff special. Oh yeah, I think because now when I land, look, I tipped to where it's like I can start my engine. Tried to steer into it, drove forward, and then it tipped that way. So there's your two angles, basically. Covers it pretty well, so of course, sending the loaf. There's a nice little jump barrel roll. Bam, you're ready to go. Nailed his engine though. He took a hard one. Definitely what she said. But he's good to go. You don't leave home without his little pouch of supplies. It's like Santa. He's got his goodies. It always makes me laugh though. It's like you teach kids, it's like, don't talk to strangers and don't accept sweets from strangers. Unless it's Christmas. And then if an old man breaks into your bedroom offering to empty his sack, you say, thank you, Santa. Manners. Manners are important. See, now it's doing the same thing where it's like, do I scrape along on my side or do I actually just give in and tip? If it had a slightly wider winch point on its chassis, then, or if it had one like underneath the door or something where it actually was like the full width of the truck, it'd tip a hell of a lot easier. So go with the loaf. That's an old 1-2 technique. Give the loaf a little nudge. See, loaf, he froze. He's checking, make sure there's no Tyrannosaurus Rexes. Coast is clear, he's good. He unfreezes. This thing was trying to do the slippery dolphin again, but he gave up. I was trying now with the front winch point. I mean, it got it to tip there, but you can just see if I carry it on, it'll just pull it around towards me where it's, yeah, gonna have no hope of flipping. Flipped pretty easily there, but it was leaning a little bit, like the angle of the beach was probably in my favour. But the loaf tipping it wise, like I say, I mean, it just tipped a twin steer. It's like far bigger than this thing. Tipped a twin steer out of the ice as well. Yeah, because it floats, I can't really do like a proper drowning test, but as you first start going in, it kind of goes just under water enough that you'll start taking a bit of damage. But as things settle down, it's a bit like other vehicles. Again, the Voron Grad is really good at doing this. This can do it if it really needs to, but I certainly wouldn't bring this as my choice vehicle to cross the water like that. Again, the Voron Grad just wins hand down. The Voron Grad's an absolute beast at crossing the water like that. It still manages to put loads of power down, and yeah, it quite urgently and eagerly ploughs its way through the water. This is kind of like, is it gonna get stuck? Is it gonna keep going? I edit like a good chunk out now because, for that reason really, like otherwise it would have been like an extra 2 minutes odd of footage of me driving across here. But yeah, driving in just now normally from the water, it didn't really start taking damage. It's already floating enough to where the snorkels are staying out of the water, and that's about it. So certainly water this deep, you'd have no issues. I could have brought the loaf with me just as a zombie winch behind me. The zombie winch might have been handy actually, because if I had the loaf behind me now and was zombie winching it, even though it's underwater, he's a goddamn professional, he figured this zombie winching situation out, he'd start pushing, so I'd have an extra like loaf boost, which, as we all know, loaf boost is integral to some good, enjoyable gameplay. Yeah, like a big edit in the middle, but eventually it got there. There's no real issues climbing up here as well, certainly nose clearance wise. It's close with the beach in there, but it just, with the 50-inch tyres and how high the suspension sits, it's funny because the raised suspension doesn't look like it gives you hardly anything, a tiny bit at the front, but some suspensions you get on trucks make a clear difference. This doesn't a whole lot, but it clearly sits high enough to where for the most part, yeah, it's one of them. I think it's a decent truck in the game, and I mean that's it. That's kind of me messing around. Again, normally I would have had the loaf with me to flip me there, but to be honest, I've done plenty of loaf flipping all night. I was having a good old time. I've ran a little bit late today. What are we on? 9:45 in the morning. Yeah, it's not too bad. And that's it in conclusion. I definitely recommend, like, it's worth buying. It was a pretty decent truck overall. You can see from the clearance at the front bumper's not far off, like, the top of the front wheels. So, yeah, power-wise, it felt decent. Tipping-wise, it's decent. Like I said, the few negatives would be the steering. Steering's not terrible. It's just a little bit on the shallow end. And, yeah, the winch points are a little bit meh. But, again, you can, work through them. It's not the end of the world. Better than no winch points. There it is in the store. Is it 90 odd grand? I think it was about 131 grand when I had it fully done up. There's a little description there. It's basically just saying it's like a Russian truck. It was originally made for the military, but ended up having like civilian and commercial use. And these days they've kind of adapted one for every kind of situation. Apparently, if there's somewhere out there in the Russian wilderness, you'll probably find a version of these set up to, yeah, plough its way through it. And that's it. Like I say, definitely worth getting. Money-wise, it's about where it should be. I don't think it's a bargain. I don't think it's dear by any means. It's probably slightly on the cheap end, if anything. And yeah, so that's it. Tony the Tayga. And this is just a little bit more messing around footage. I'm about done now, but there's a few extras. Well, not really outtakes, because, I mean, look at the loaf. He gets the job done. He hung on to that winch point for as long as he needed. And they both tipped. But, of course, like I say, if you don't start, you ain't turning the key hard enough. Fortunately for me, I was. He's up there and he was away. What I did notice, that was one reason I did end up leaving this in, I've just broke the suspension on this, and you'll see now how much easier it tips with broken suspension, like instantly before I barely even started driving forward. So I don't know how much that's going to be relevant, but it is what it is. It tips a lot easier when the suspension is broken. And then this I just went back, did a couple more wall jumps, because to be honest I only did one earlier because it went right first time, so I was like, oh, I quite enjoyed that. It certainly jumps it pretty well, unless you do this. Do a jump, clip the tree. That did not go too well. And then I think I came back, I was trying to test like the balancing point on the wall, but as you'll see, I get the wall caught on those red fuel tanks, so there's not really a lot I can do. It's definitely close to the 50-50 weight point though, but yeah, you can tell there's like a little bit more on the back end. But yeah, that's about it. I certainly recommend getting it. It's a decent truck they've added so far. Like the last couple of phases, it's been pretty good with the trucks they've added. They're not complete terrible write-offs. But yeah, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my Patreon members. Enjoy the rest of your Christmas, whatever you get up to, and I'll be back soon. Oh yeah, and get yourself a loaf, of course, because he's a goddamn horse with a vehicle. That's about it.